Welcome back, Levelin Up Nation. This is your host and your success story strategist of the Levelin Up podcast, Brigham Blackham. I am so stoked today. We have an amazing guest. Now, Ford Saeks, he is someone that is definitely a GOAT when it comes to speaking. And today we are going to go very deep on if AI will destroy the speaking and keynote speaking career as a whole. He's been in this for decades. He understands the ins and outs of AI. He understands the ins and outs of the speaking career. And I'm so excited for our conversation. This is going to be one that I think you can look back to for months and years to say, wow, this is how AI can take me to that next level. This is how I'm going to be able to see farther and be able to take some amazing action. So let's welcome Ford to the stage. How you doing, Ford?
Hey, I'm so glad to be here. So just so everybody knows, this is live. We spent 2 minutes in the green room before we went to this broadcast. It's an exciting topic, and I'm glad to be here.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Ford, for being here. Let's dive straight in. I would love to hear your backstory and your connection with AI and speaking, because you have such a diverse background. You have so many things behind your name that show how credible you are. It's incredible. Tell us a little bit of your background and why it's so important for people to really dive into AI and how this is so important.
Well, the background here is, it's all about delivering value and making a profit. And so as a digital marketer, a direct mail marketer, a brand marketer, going backwards in time, decades, I look at tools and I look at how does this help me do four things? How does it help me expand my reach and influence? AI can absolutely do that. How does it help me build my subscriber lists? Or not necessarily lead lists, but subscribers, my following, right?
Mhm.
AI can do that. How does it help you get leads? Well, obviously, it can help you create lead magnets and all the other things you need to do to generate leads. And then how do you shorten the sales cycle? Obviously, AI can do that. And actually, I'm going to throw in a fifth way. How can it improve efficiencies? How can it help me save time and not do more, but actually be better, do less better? And so when someone asks me about AI, I always look through the lens of business and business growth. I don't really give about whether it's the newest, greatest bleeding edge tool. And I love the tools. I mean, I'm up late on TikTok watching new tools, and I see new tools every day. And as a keynote speaker, I speak on this topic, and I'm at conferences, and usually there's two or three speakers. And usually there's one speaker who talks about the history of AI and goes through the life story and shows a lot of really cool examples. But the people in the audience are going, I can't do that. That doesn't make any sense to me. This isn't applicable. And then I speak, and then everybody leaves with tons of notes. And I'm not saying I'm better than other people. That's not what I'm saying. The answer to the question is you have to look at AI through the lens of business growth, not just technology. So in turning it back over to you, I'd say don't get seduced by technology. Focus on, is this going to help improve the customer experience? Is this going to help me make better decisions? And if so, then apply an AI tool.
I love it. Now, because we as speakers are in the people business, we have to connect in a really meaningful way. Can you help us understand, for those that have really never toyed around with AI, how to keep it simple so that you're not just throwing a robot or a chat bot at somebody, but you can actually keep that human connection?
Sure. So, I mean, it starts with there's different levels, right? So level one would be, using the large language models. By now, everybody's probably heard of ChatGPT. If you haven't, you've been living under a rock. But there's large language models, and there's a lot of different ones, and you don't need to use all of them. You don't need to use Claude, Perplexity, and Amazon just came up with a new one now called Nova, and Copilot and Gemini. If you're new to this, or if you think you're already an expert, make sure you've really mastered ChatGPT first. That's level one. Level two is looking at large language models to do the same prompt. Level three is looking at third-party AI tools, which people have built on top of large language models. And there's millions of them. So it's a specific application that's using AI, but it's actually using the large language model. And then level four is setting up automated workflows. So for example, Brigham, when you reached out to me to be on the show, to be live, I have a custom chat GPT for media. So I can upload the show note or the show, who the host is and who the show is, and it'll go research and it'll give me details and exactly the same thing I do for my show. When I have a guest, I put them through the custom chat GPT and it gives me the research. It gives me talking points. It gives me their introduction. It gives me the storyline hooks That way, when I'm on with the guest, I actually sound like I know the guest, and I might have met him 5 minutes before I go live. So
That's
that's a
awesome.
long road to a tiny house on the answer. But I believe you should start with ChatGPT, master it, understand the dynamics of it, set all your privacy settings up, and then look at other tools. Don't get seduced by all the bells and whistles.
I love that. When you look at all of the bells and whistles in your own words, simplifying to the point that this is what will actually move the needle in sales. What if you could say is one thing or one encouragement for brand new people to become better prompt engineers?
Okay, so from a prompt engineer, I would say that there's I'm going to go simple and more detailed. The simple answer is talk to it like a human,
Hmm.
not because it needs it, but because it's going to put you in the right mindset. So say hello, say how you're doing, say thank you, and maybe because when they take over the world, they'll spare you. But
Right.
I would recommend talking to it like a human and having a complex, multi-layered, reiterated conversation, and not just write me a 900-word blog post on leadership. That's really not what you should do. You should say, I'm a leadership expert and my name is blank, and I'm looking to position myself against these key competitors. And I want to make sure that I stand out, and I want to make sure that you understand my brand. So I want you to interview me until you completely understand my brand before you write any copy. So I want you to use the prompt that actually, like you would with an employee. You'd hire an employee and you'd train the employee, and then you'd monitor how they do. So I would recommend complex conversations, and that was my short answer, if you can believe it or not. And the longer answer is set a persona, set an outcome, set the format you want it in, specify the output, make sure you have your custom instructions set up so it knows who you are, and take the time to iterate. I don't like that word, iterate. And then once you've taken that prompt through ChatGPT, I would recommend you go to perplexity.ai and Claude. Those are my three go-tos as of today of this broadcast, and do the same experience and exercise on two other large language models, and then take the content from those three and put it into a Word document and use it as your little mini sales dictionary. And then that way, the next time you go back to train a different AI model, you can just start with that document that has all those key details.
Beautiful. As far as being able to eliminate overwhelm, I loved your suggestion of making sure that you start with ChatGPT, get familiar with that language model. As a speaker, there's diverse ways you can use this. There's so many different ways that you can interact and help you hone your story. One of the ideas that I've used for almost a year now is making sure you define the role that you are having ChatGPT play. Can you talk to why that is so important in these language models?
Well, I'm going to answer it a different way. If I
Okay.
said, Brigham, so on the back of your shelf, I can see that you have a few books. How many books do you think you've read in your lifetime?
Oh, close to 2,000,
Okay.
somewhere in there.
If I asked you on those 2,000 books that you've read, what's your percentage of recall of that information that you read?
I don't know. 10% or less, somewhere in there.
Okay. Keyword or less, right? All right. So what I would look at is AI has 100% recall, and it's read everything,
Yeah.
and it continues to get smarter every day. So back to your original question, how can it help and how do I set the persona? In the early days of ChatGPT, you really did have to set the persona. You would say, act as my intellectual property attorney, act as my social media marketing, act as my brand manager, act as my accountant, act as my operations director. And that helped the AI understand the context of what the prompt is. You can still do that today. It's still recommended, but the AIs have gotten smarter. So as long as you give it the context, not as necessarily the role, but the
Yeah.
context of what your outcome is, the AI tools now are smart enough to know, oh, he's working on marketing. Well, I'm going to use marketing.
That's a great answer.
I'm glad you approve.
Oh, no, absolutely. To check. Yeah. When you're thinking about taking AI and creating, let's say, a lead generation tool, What are some of the ways that you've been able to keep it your own voice so that you're not just blending into everybody else's ethereal language? I would love to
So
hear
to
your
keep it,
thoughts on that.
I got it. So to keep my own voice, here's what
Mhm.
you do. Everybody listening, and this, even though we're talking right now about the speaking industry, this really, in the end, speaking's a business. You don't want to get tied to your identity of delivery method. So
Mhm.
I'm an expert who speaks. I'm an expert who's a Hall of Fame keynote speaker. My fees are not cheap. I have high-end consulting. I have product sales. I have done few services, but it's the expert first. So all of you listening to this, whether you're a speaker, author, trainer, consultant, or an entrepreneur, a business owner, franchise, whatever, your expertise is the value you're giving, right? And so you want to
Mhm.
focus on the value first and then the delivery method. So back to the question again, I'm just putting a framework on it as far as lead magnets or how would I use it. The first thing I'd recommend you do is you open up a Word document. So you'd open up a Word document and you'd say, I'm the host of Leveling Up podcast. I'm a speaker. I do this, and you would dump all of your ideal client avatars, the problems you solve, your value propositions, copies of blog posts, all into one document. Then you would go to ChatGPT, you'd log into the paid account, and you'd go on the left to explore GPTs. And then the upper right, you'd hit create. And you would create a custom GPT so that when you go to create a lead magnet, you go to that custom GPT. For those of you who don't know, is just a subset that's targeted around one thing. So just as what that is. And if you don't know what it is, go to Google and type it in, or go to
Yeah.
ChatGPT and say, what's a custom GPT? But once you have that document and you create a custom GPT and you tell the GPT, your job, the outcome of this GPT is to help me create unique content in my voice, then you can say, create a lead magnet, create a special report, a download, a lunch and learn presentation, outreach, LinkedIn prospecting, whatever the tool you're trying to do. And because it already knows who you are and who your ideal client is and who your competitors are, what industries you work on, what associations you're a member of, the more information that you can train the AI on what your outcome is, the better responses that you're going to get from the tool.
Wow. As you're doing that, that seems like it could be literally just hundreds of pages if you've been doing this for years. So how much is too much when you're doing this?
So the custom GPTs, they have different levels of how much content you can upload. So I'm just going to make this up because I don't
Yeah.
have the exact numbers, but like, for example, on a custom GPT, I think it's 11 files up to so much size.
Okay.
Claude AI just announced their model. It's not called custom GPTs. It's called, I'll look it up. It's not called Spaces. In my head, it's called Spaces, but it's like specialties.
Yeah.
And they can have 50 different documents. And so and that's just the time of this broadcast. So what happens is, Brigham, every AI tool that comes up with a new feature, then they all jump on it. It's just like what happened with social media. You're probably too young to remember when YouTube started, but assuming you weren't, but I'm teasing. YouTube was 2005. But when YouTube first came out, they were the ones with video, right? And then LinkedIn was for professional networking, and Facebook was for personal. But if you look at it over time, they all let you do video. They all let you do a lot of the same things. It's the same thing that's happening with the AI tools. One AI tool will have something as of today. Tomorrow, they'll add that new feature. When I present keynotes on AI or presentations or as a strategic consultant, I end up checking things out the night before. I just did a large broadcast yesterday on AI. It was called AI Innovations, Real Strategies for Real Results. And when I presented, I was changing my presentation. It was at noon Central. I changed it up to 11 a.m. because Claude came up with some new things. And it's not that you want to be on the bleeding edge, but I want to make sure that it's timely, topical, and relevant. And that's the problem with this topic is everybody with a laptop right now is an AI expert. Every speaker, trainer, author, and expert who can't make it in leadership, team building, management, culture, change, community, they're all now AI experts. And what's interesting to me is I'm not saying that I am prosperity conscious. There's plenty of work out for everybody, but someone coming from a leadership background, they can certainly talk about AI as it relates to leadership, but they can't talk about AI as it relates to business growth necessarily if they don't have that modality. what separates me from a lot of those other people that are jumping on this bandwagon is I'm, again, like we started in the show opening, I'm looking at this through the eyes of business growth.
Hmm.
How do I reach more high value clients or customers? How do I increase the average transaction, adding more value? How do I get repeat and referral sales? How do I improve my centers of influence? And how do I improve business operations? What's your technology stack? What different tools do you have? What are your teams doing and what software are they using? And then I look at shortening that gap. How do you shorten the sales cycle? How do you shorten the time it takes to do whatever it is that you're doing in your operations? And I work in multiple industries because I look through that lens of business growth as opposed to another topic.
Wonderful. So when you are learning new technologies, because everyone has to go through that learning phase, what are some of the ways that you've been able to keep the right mindset as you are having all of these different things always changing? It's always in flux with AI and being on that bleeding edge, like you said.
Well, I think you touched on something, certainly something I do in all my presentations, is it really does all start with the mindset. It's not the tool. And, when I work with a coaching client or an organization or even a team member on my staff, I want someone who's a critical thinker, which means they may have beliefs, but they're willing to look critically at something. So they don't just take everything they see and read. They critically think. I want someone who's open-minded. I want them to have beliefs, but be open that there might be a better way. And I'll tell you, the more I've learned about AI, the more I know I don't know. And it's not just AI, it's everything in business. So I've been in business now for decades. And if there's anything I've learned is, yes, I'm an expert in a lot of areas, but I'm also, as a marketer, a critical thinker to say, well, maybe there's a better way. And I take input from everybody, even though I'm very opinionated, as you can tell from this broadcast. But I also am open enough to know there's market changes, there's economic changes, there's generation changes, there's buyer behaviors that change, there's compliance, there's all these other external factors that affect that. So open-minded, I want to be a critical thinker, which helps improve your learning. I want to make sure you start small and get complicated later, or start simple, get complicated later. So taking action, spend 10 minutes, spend 15 minutes. And so the learning takes place by having an open mindset and being coachable and open to doing this, just like the people who are listening. If anybody tuned into this live broadcast, it's because they like what we're talking about. And then from there, it's asking better questions. So Brigham, I say that if you're asking the wrong question, the answer doesn't matter. And a lot of people are asking the wrong questions. And I'm not talking about prompting in AI. I'm talking about their business, their life, whatever they're trying to solve. And the great thing about this new species that have landed, and I'm not talking about the aliens in Tucson, but I really believe that AI is like a sentient being. And even though it's a toaster on autocomplete, it also simulates intelligence and actually is going to generative AI where it actually has its own language and intelligence. So I know that's a long answer again, but I would say if you're watching this now or listening to this, I would say you really need to start by saying, how can I use this to save me time, improve the quality of life, improve the customer experience? If you focus on the outcome, then the answers will come. If you focus on, there's too many choices and I'm going to wait until they figure it all out. The greatest fear isn't adopting it too soon. It's waiting too long and falling behind.
That's a great point. My mission president, he used to say this. I thought it was phenomenal. A good decision made at the right time is better than the best decision made too late. That was Mike Herr. And I think that's some of the things that we need to be aware of as we increase our awareness of what AI can do and how it's continually getting better and more diverse and having more tools. We can get overwhelmed. Just make a decision and then make the decision right. So Ford, let's actually go a little bit deeper on how AI applies to speaking, ways that you've been able to use it in a way that is meaningful. What is one way that you've been able to use AI to either generate revenue as a speaker or be able to help you actually improve the quality of your content?
Oh, so give me a time frame on this answer. How long do you want me to answer it?
5 minutes or less.
Okay, 5 minutes less. I'm looking at the live talk time, okay?
Sweet.
All right. So how do you use AI in the speaking business? Well, in the speaking business, there's really 5 different things that you need to have as foundations. You need to have really clear value propositions and understand what value do you add in the language of your ideal client. So that whole thing could be an hour in itself, but
Mm.
you have to work on value propositions as a speaker. I don't want you to get attached to your identity of delivery, speaker, author, trainer, consultant. I want you to be an expert first. Those are just packaging. So that's number one. Number two, I need you to have a revenue model. AI can help you define the revenue model. How are you going to actually trade your value and solve problems? AI can help you create that revenue model. Are you going to be a keynote speaker like I am and speak on large stages? Or are you going to be a trainer or an on-site trainer that goes into organizations and does workshops? Or maybe you're going to do public events, or maybe you're just going to do virtual events. So AI can help you craft everything related to the different delivery methods. Number three, presentations. AI can help you with the presentation. You can say, I'm going to be speaking to an association of plumbers, and I'd like you to come up with some unique humor lines that I can add into my signature story that aren't jokes, but help position me and add a little levity to the presentation. Now, obviously, this only works if you can deliver the right type of, speaking. But you can use AI to help you with your narratives, not write the narratives for you. It's not replacing you, but to enhance what you're doing. It can look at your storyline. It can look at your PowerPoint. It can look at your keynote narrative. And it can help you craft a better opening or a better closing. So the third thing is it can help you with your presentation skills and your narratives. Number four, your digital footprint. If you're going to be a speaker, what shows up when you Google your name? So right down on the screen right now, you can see my website, profitrichresults.com. You can go there and see who I am. You can Google my name. I have a big digital footprint. So what shows up in Google? What shows up on LinkedIn and YouTube and Facebook and TikTok? Although I'm not as much active on TikTok as I am wasting time at 2 a.m. But what shows up when someone Googles your name in the search engines? What shows up in any business directory listings that you're part of? That's the fourth way. And the fifth way is your sales playbook. So if you want to get more high paid speaking engagements, AI can help you prospect. It can help do the research. It can help you with your outreach. It can help you with your whole sales playbook in general. And most importantly, it really can help you make sure that it's in your tone and it's in your voice. And a real practical thing that I do, let's say I have a hold from a speakers bureau because I'm represented by agents around the globe. If they call me and they say, hey, we want you to put a hold on, name a company, Brigham, just so I'm not naming
Target,
a company.
Sure.
Okay, fine.
Target.
So Target calls, they're doing their annual conference on customer experience, and they'd like to have you come in for a speaker. Do you have a hold on April 25th? And I'll say, sure. So then I go to AI and I say, now obviously I know who Target is because I grew up in Minneapolis, but I would say, I have a GPT for this, but I'll tell you what the instructions are for the GPT. Because I have a GPT, I can just say Target and it knows what to do. But let's assume I didn't have a GPT. I would go to Chat GPT, which is different. And I would say, I'm a keynote speaker. You know who I am. I have a pre-event call or a pre-planning call with Target's leadership for their annual conference. Here's everything I know about the conference. I want you to go do your research. And actually, I would do this in Perplexity. I don't do it on ChatGPT because Perplexity has more current information. So I go to Perplexity and I use the same prompt, but I ask it to do the research on who Target is, give me key points, who's their ideal customer, how many locations do they have, what's their biggest challenge facing them? Is it supply chain? Is it inventory? Is it turnover? Is it DEI? Like what's the hot buttons? And then I say, create the summary for my CRM and give me key talking points that I can use to ask the leadership to position me as the ideal expert for their event. So I use AI to do all of that research that I used to do manually. And so I can do that in 10 seconds and have everything. And then when I get on the call with Target, they'll say, well, Ford, are you familiar with us? And I'll say, yes, you've got 1,400 locations. You started in 1962. And obviously these are not the real notes here, everybody. But I'm able to communicate more effectively. Now, it's not a replacement. I want to be very careful here. Some people listening to might think, well, why do they need you if they can just use AI? That was the whole point of this broadcast, right? Is, well, will AI replace speakers? Is it going to replace us? No, I think it's going to make us even more valuable. So that's over 5 minutes. So I'm going to stop there.
That's excellent. I think as we go into how you create value as a speaker, the value proposition is something that is the difference between someone being a well-paid speaker and someone that just is a good speaker. So would you mind bringing that up a little bit more in detail? Give us a couple minutes of why that's so important and how AI will impact that long term.
Well, speaking's a business that's easy to get into. It's hard to stay in. I've been in the speaking industry now, paid for 34 years. I'm a founding member of the $1 Million Speakers Group, which doesn't mean anything. It just means we have higher level conversations for speakers making 7 figures and above. And value is value. And at the end of the day, people want to know what's wrong with me. Can you fix it? How much is it going to cost and how long is it going to take? And so you have to clearly understand what the challenge is of your ideal market is, of your ideal client. And you have to know who that ideal client is. And I work with a lot of speakers who are new to the business. Maybe they were in corporate and now they're trying to be a speaker, or they were on a reality show like Survivor and now they want to be a speaker, or they were Olympian. There's been a lot of people I've worked with at all different levels, fees that are higher than mine, fees that are lower than mine. And it always comes down to the same thing. What problem are you solving that people are willing to pay to make go away? I had a call with a leadership expert, a so-called leadership expert, and they had, a decent amount of experience. And I said, how many years do you have? And they said 15 years. And of course, my brain went, do they have 15 years of growth, or 1 year they repeated 15 times? And so I talked to them about their value. And I said, what's your fee? And they said, well, my fee's $5,000. And I said, are you an expert? He said, yeah, I'm one of the top leadership experts. I said, well, this isn't congruent. If you're really the top leadership expert, your fee should be $20,000 to $40,000, not $5,000. Yes, but I went to the National Speakers Association and I went to this workshop and this person told me that I should have a low fee. And then when the demand increases so much, then I should raise my fees. And I just said, that's just bull. That's not true. You have to price it based on the value and the perception in the mind of the prospect, not how many speeches you've done. Now, obviously you need to be able to deliver the value. So Going back to your point of how can, it really be used, it can help you improve your value propositions by doing the research, working through the narrative. You price things based on 3 levels, Brigham: cost-based, competition-based, and value-based. Obviously in speaking, what's the cost? I'm going to get on an airplane and fly. They don't pay me to do the speech. They pay me to get on the airplane. And that's not my line. That's a speaker I heard, and it really made sense to me, because the pain in the PITA, the pain in the butt, is getting on the airplane and traveling. Doing the speeches, I'd speak for free. Just pay me to get there and do this presentation. And so, it really comes down to pricing it based on the value and not based on what the competition is. So if you don't know what the economic or emotional pain is that you solve for your ideal client, then you don't know how to price your product. And whenever I start working with new speakers and even seasoned speakers that have a low fee, they can't answer that. And then I'm like, well, that's the first place you have to start. And that's what AI can help you do.
Yeah, economic pain, all these different pain points. What are some of the ways that you've been able to highlight the biggest pains to be able to articulate it in a way that your ideal client says, oh, you are the expert that we need for this? How have you been able to
so we're going to do a mini hot seat. Are you a speaker?
Sweet. Yeah.
What's your fee?
Do it. My fee right now is $3,333.
Okay. What's the problem you're solving?
I solve stage fright. People that have.
So you work with people now. Do you do it for salespeople, organizations, or other speakers?
For writers, people that
for writers. So you work with writers that want to use speaking as a medium to generate revenue based on the content in their books. Is that what you do?
Yeah.
Okay. So where would you speak? Where's your ideal place that you would speak?
Writers.
Are you doing public events?
Public events would be great. Okay. I recently went to a writers guild. There was about 40 something people there. Okay. Just finding groups of writers, other authors, people that want, maybe even publishers.
What's the problem that you're solving for those people? Today, please welcome Brigham. He's going to speak to us today on how to take our content from the book and monetize it. And so they're gonna pay you to come in and speak. They need to pay you based on the value to the members and what they wanted, right? Because it's different in every modality. Right. And for the purpose of this, we're just talking hypothetical. So, let's say $3,333 or whatever the different price is. you need to price based on the value. So if I heard you speak, and I've written books, I've got multiple books I've published behind me, and let's say I was at a different stage of my career and I was going to hire you, what's the problem that you're solving for me that I'd want to spend money on to go to an event?
So you think about how people really get stuck using their words on paper. They can use AI to do that. But when it comes to articulating and actually voicing their story, sharing how that competitive advantage of opening their mouth and making the real things that they experienced come forth, that's where the main value is. Helping someone be able to.
I'm going to ask you another thing, and don't hang up on this. Is live,
Oh,
everybody. He has no
This
idea that I'm doing this right now. So I want to be very careful here.
So you're good for it. No worries.
So what's a benefit of working with you? What's a benefit?
Clarity. My first pillar of my coaching is all about making sure you're placing.
Okay,
focus.
That's not a benefit. What's another benefit?
That's not a benefit?
Nope, not a benefit. I'll tell you why in a minute. What's another benefit?
Simplicity.
Simplicity.
So
okay, I've got
$10,000
sitting right in front of me. If I'm going to give you this $10,000, I want to know, why am I giving you this? Clarity is not a benefit. Simplicity is not a benefit. That's a process. What else?
You have actionable insight so that you don't have to guess what to do next.
Okay, you're hinting at a benefit. So here's your takeaway for having me as a guest on your show today.
Excellent.
A benefit is the end result of a product or service. It's the reason why they're spending the money, not the process. So if you're talking about you, your company, your products, or your processes, it's a feature. So if you use the words which means or so what, that will help you take it from a feature to a benefit. So simplicity. If I'm a speaker and I'm an author and I'm struggling and you're going to give me clarity, what's the benefit? The benefit is that it's going to save me time and get in front of audiences and help more people and generate more revenue. Like, you need to take it to the next step. And that's the difference of value propositions, where most people get it wrong. They're so focused on how they do it, and they're talking about how they do it in their processes, but it's not about the process. It's just, as a keynote speaker, it's not about me. It's not about the keynote speech. It's not about my stories. It's about, will someone in the audience remember what I said, and more importantly, take action on what I said, take action to help move whatever the metric is in their life. Is it, what do they want to go towards? What do they want to go away from? So for you, for pricing on your value, because the whole question here was on value propositions, if you're going to be in that space and work with authors to do it, you need to lead with, I'm going to help you make a better impact. I'm going to help you share your message and create a better quality of life. I'm going to help you create a lifestyle-friendly business that generates revenue. And here's your magic words for today. I'm going to help you monetize your expertise. Yeah.
Monetize your expertise is so good.
Yeah. So that's where I would go. Now, guys, for those of you listening, this is a hot seat. He has no idea. He's the host. This is his show. But again, this is straight talk. That's why you go live on platforms, and because it's authentic. And so here's the deal. If you're listening to us right now, whether you agree or disagree, whatever platform you're watching this on right now, you can type some comments into it. You can reach out to both of us on LinkedIn. There's easy ways to reach. Obviously, if you want to reach out to me, it's 15with4.com. And that gets you 15 minutes with me. I'm not going to spend 16, but if you want to jump on for 15 minutes and you have a certain question about something that we've talked about today, we can certainly do that. But I think the real key for you growing this business, you're doing the right thing. You got the podcast, you're getting good guests. I would want to make sure that you get guests that elevate you, which I think I would, being in my space. So that's a good thing. And then I think when it comes to your value proposition, I think you and I should really talk, because you need to position it for, and I realize people say, well, authors don't have money. Well, the wrong authors don't have money, but it's not your responsibility to worry about your prospects if they have money. It's your responsibility to find your ideal client who wants to do it. There are countless places where you can go and monetize your book, countless private and public and nonprofit organizations. And so that just tells you there's a need. And the people who are the most successful aren't the best products. They're the best marketers. And I'm not saying you should have a crappy product. What I'm saying is we've all gone to restaurants that the food was amazing and they went out of business.
Hmm.
And then you go to a restaurant that you don't go to for every, few months. And then you're like, why do we eat here? Like, the food sucks. Why am I keep coming back to the same place? It's because of their marketing or because of their location and where they are. So if you want to get more business, if you want to stand out from the competition, if you want to attract more high paying clients or make your life easier, the more clarity you can put around the value proposition, means the proposition of value, right? Some people throw these terms out, but they don't really think about what it means. The bigger the problem that you solve, the more they're willing to pay to make go away. And so your first action step should be, what problems do I solve, or as an author, does my book solve, that people are willing to invest in to pay to make go away? Like, I'm a keynote speaker. My fees are 25 grand and go up from there. That's not bragging. My fees when I started were $150. Like, and I have clients that their fees $125,000. So let's not get seduced by the fee, but the fee has to be congruent to whatever the value is, as opposed to $3,333, which is fine if it's a coaching program or a one-time call with a client, but you're going to raise skinny kids if you don't add more value.
That's fair. So making sure that you're adding value in a way that they can see it, that they can feel, they can touch it. That's something I think.
And that's where the communication comes in. And that's what ChatGPT can do. You can go to ChatGPT and say, look, I've been doing this business for 3 years. My fees are this. What could I do to help position me in the marketplace for higher fees? And of course, one of those things is to go live. So, going live. Why did I agree to be on this podcast? I don't know your whole listeners. My team set this whole thing up. That's why I was like, I don't know where the thumbnail is, right? But I go on podcasts usually 3 or 4 times a week. Sometimes they take an hour. Sometimes they take 10 minutes. But it expands my reach and influence, because I never know who's listening. I don't know who your ideal client is. And now you're getting exposed to all my people, because I went live right now on YouTube and Facebook. I didn't add the LinkedIn because we started quick, but my main following's on LinkedIn. But I would say for you, the more exposure you have, the better. But, don't speak for free. I just want to throw this one thing in there, because I brought up the word exposure. In the speaking business, when you're soliciting to get speaking, maybe at associations or groups, they're like, we don't pay speakers, but you get exposure. And every time I hear that, I think the only thing you get from exposure is a cold. Like, I don't mind being positioned in an audience speaking and I don't speak for free, by the way. It's called waiving my fee. So I don't mind waiving my fee to go speak in an organization. If the organization has my ideal clients in it, then I'll do it. So I just wanted to throw that one piece in there.
I think that's excellent to say, this is my free to fee, or waiving your fee, so that you can get in front of the right people. But if you don't know if that audience is going to be filled with your ideal client, it's kind of a gamble. How do you know which people are going to be in the audience? What's your experience?
Well, two things. One, you have to look at your calendar, and every day you're not, if you're a speaker, every day you're not speaking, you're unemployed. And so you have to look at your wall calendar, or your, Outlook or Google, whatever calendar you're using, and look at the number of dates that you're presenting. If you're not in front of groups, audiences, or a podcast or media, you're not presenting. So if I was going to go speak and waive my fee at a group, and I wasn't sure who the ideal client was, but I thought the venue was enough, I'm mainly looking for audience size and what the outcome is. And then if I'm going to go speak and waive my fee, I'm going to come up with sound bites that I want to make sure that I speak about. And then I'm going to go film it so that I can get footage using those key sound bites. And then that way I can use that on social media. I can use that in my marketing. So it's strategically not just giving the presentation, but it's leveraging the presentation for testimonials, reviews, sound bites, connections, networking, lead magnets. Like, there's a lot of different methods where a lot of people don't even understand. They don't know what they don't know, right? There's so many people I know that think they're experts, but they don't know what they don't know, and they're not open and coachable. So obviously the people watching this are, or they wouldn't be taking their time to join us today.
Excellent. So that I can kind of make sure that the framework here is kind of with a little bow on it. Would you mind helping us simplify what it takes to be like a decade-long or more successful speaker? What simple way could you say, hey, this is how you do it?
I'd really say it comes down to a formula called message, market, and method. You need to make sure you have a timely and topical and relevant message, which again is value proposition.
Mm-hmm.
You need to make sure that you've identified who that ideal client is. An ideal client, I'm talking industry or industries or types of markets that would work. In the speaking business, you're either going to do corporate speaking, association speaking, or public event. So either the association's putting the butts in the seats, the corporation's having you talk to their employees, or you're speaking to other promoters who are having a conference and you're speaking at their conference, their public event,
Mm-hmm.
or you're producing your own public event. So that's number two. And the third thing is your method. How are you going to expand your reach so people know about you? There are thousands of speakers that are probably better than me. And I don't mean probably, of course they're better than me. But it's not about who's best. It's about who's visible and who's delivering value. I wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame if I wasn't recognized by my peers, as it's not something you can buy.
Mm-hmm.
If I wasn't recognized by the industry and the peers and my clients as someone who delivers value. So if you want to remain in this business for more than a minute, you have to be working on your craft, your content, your delivery, the problems you solve, how you position against the competition. You need to make sure you're building relationships and you have some type of a sales playbook with your ideal market. And then you need to take time to block time out to digitize your reputation. And you have to expand your brand. And if you're not findable, they're not going to be able to use you. And so if you're watching this and you're an author, speaker, trainer, consultant, and you're saying, gee, I think when I speak, people love it. I get standing ovations, which is not the end goal of a keynote, but it's really comes down to Brigham delivering the value. And you can measure your value by your bank account. If you're not getting the leads you want, if you're not booked as much as you want, you're either a secret and no one knows about you. You haven't presented the skills that you need to get the business. I'll just say one thing. Do you know who Les Brown is? The speaker, yeah. Les Brown? Okay.
Yep.
So when I first got in the speaking industry in the early 90s, I sold my sporting goods company and I went to work for a lot of public seminar companies. I basically retired and I was just trying to figure out what this whole speaking business was about. So I did presentations, full day workshops for Skill Path, Career Track, Fred Pryor, National Seminars Group, and Rockhurst University. And then I wrote curriculum for those courses and I got paid royalties on the courses. And then I did the Train the Trainer program to sell at the back of the room because I knew how to sell and deliver value. Along the way, I came across Les Brown. I'm like, man, I'd love to work with that man one day. And, long story short, I became his manager, managed him for 3 years. I took him from $1 million to $3 million in revenue in 6 months, helped him do a 3-book tour it's published 3 different books, do a 13-city tour, rev share tour with radio stations, and did 2 infomercials. So I learned a lot about the other side of the business. At that point, my speaking fee was $2,500 and I'm booking him at 30 grand. And I'm like, and I want to figure out how to do that. Right. So I was with Les Brown. There's a long road here, but I was with Les Brown in an audience and we were there I was his manager. So I traveled everywhere. It was a big conference, like 2,000 people. And he spoke the next day. We came the day before. It's always a good idea to see some of the speakers the day before. So we're sitting in the audience and the speaker on stage is terrible. I mean, 10-point font, PowerPoint, turning his back to the audience, reading the slides. I mean, it was literally a disaster. And I turned over to Les and I said, this guy's terrible. And I started complaining. And he grabbed my ear and said, look, listen, this is going to be a lifelong lesson for you. He said, don't criticize the speaker because he represents the thoughts and the feelings that you have failed to act upon. So if you want to do what he does, then you need to do what he does. And I never forgot that. And so now whenever I see someone doing something that I should do, or maybe they've got I don't have a huge following on YouTube. I've put lots of videos up and I've got, 100,000 views, but I've worked with clients that have hundreds of millions of views. So I'm like a plumber with leaky pipes. Right. And, so I would just say this, it comes down to, if you see someone doing something that you think you could do better, then you really need to ask yourself, Am I taking the action steps that they're taking? Don't begrudge them. Don't criticize them, but learn from them and say, okay, if they can do it, then I can do it.
Excellent. Well, Ford, thank you so much. That was a beautiful story to put a little bow on the end of this conversation. Any final thoughts as far as I love these little sound bits you got in there. It's so fun. Any final questions that I didn't ask that I should have?
That's a great closing question. And the great closing question would be, if you're listening, I don't have an overlay for this, so get your pens out. If you're driving, stop driving, write this down. Go to profitrichresults.com/AI-training. It's nothing to buy. It'll give you access to 60 minutes of, actually more, it's like 3 hours worth of AI training. But every 60 to 90 days, I do an AI training. I just did one 2 days ago. It's up on that page. There's nothing to buy. So profitrichresults.com/AI-training. It'll give you timely, practical and relevant ideas and ways that you can leverage AI in your business. And especially if you're a speaker, author, trainer, consultant, you need to go there. If nothing else, just model what I've done and you kind of get a chance to see it. And so I've got a PDF download. I've got 60 ways to use AI. I've got other video trainings up there and bonuses and links to the proper tools. So that's what I'd recommend, is taking action. So if you're listening to a podcast, it's always about taking action. So that's what I would say is connect with me on LinkedIn. If you've enjoyed this, if you've liked it, put some comments below on whatever platform you're on, and tune in for his next pod. When's your next time you're going live?
Next Thursday, 8 a.m.
Oh, okay. You're going live next Thursday. So I go live Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Central on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. I have a show called Fortify Live. Now, let's just pull back the curtain for just a second. What did I do on this podcast? I seeded my presentations. I added value. I gave lead magnets, places where people could go. I had the 15 with Ford, and I gave the other one. And then I was able to cross promote my own show on without being too salesy. I mean, you don't want to insult the guest by them going, hey, what the hell are you doing? Excuse me, I didn't hit the beep. So this is, and then I didn't say my disclaimer, which I always say for lives. If you've liked this is for educational and informational purposes only. Neither Brigham or I or his associates or assigns are giving you legal advice. So do your own due diligence and don't blame us, but you need to take action. And that's the last thing I'd probably say.
Amen. Well, Ford, thank you so much. I'm so excited to have more of our people come and connect with you on that AI. We definitely need to have more conversations. And when you're looking for another guest in the future, I'd love to be on your podcast as well.
Well, reach out to Devin and my team and tell them you want to be interviewed, and I'll have you on my show.
Done. We'll do it. Well, once again, thank you so much, guys. I want to encourage you to go and connect with Ford again. Thank you so much. And as always, keep leveling up your life. Find those things that you want to change in your life. Swap out those things that aren't helping you so that you can continue to level up your life in every way. And we'll see you guys next time. God bless.